going good. How about with you?
It's going pretty good. Spring is officially on, so I'm actually enjoying it so far. So,
Oh,
how
yeah.
about you?
I'm really not looking forward to the heat that comes with
All
Florida.
right, right. Soon
We're
enough, it
supposed to
will
hit
be there.
90s, but you know how it is, right?
Yeah, and with you, you got humidity extra bonuses there.
Yes, extra bonus. But at least this week they're saying that we can be like Vegas and claim
Oh,
dry heat. So we'll see.
okay. Well, hopefully you're lucky in that respect then. So today, I'm looking forward to talking to you just a little bit. We're talking about customer retention. So we're going to
Yes.
divvy up some tips and share some wisdom and see if we can't inspire some people and also learn along the way. So today, broadly, let's cover some loyalty tactics, communication programs, feedback loop, however, we kind of get connected with customers. I would love to hear for you, like tip number one, and let's see what we can do. So why don't you
Yeah.
take it away?
Yeah. Yeah. They always say that it is better and preferred to retain the customers that you have because it is so costly to acquire new
Yes.
clients, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so retention is really where you put the spotlight on that customer. And we've said it time and time again with understanding the personas of the customers
Mm-hmm.
and why that is so important. And I really
Right.
think that that tip number one has to be focused on that personalized communication
Right. Right.
um, that you have going out. So really understanding, let's look at the basics, right? let's
Mm-hmm.
let's communicate to the level that they wish to be communicated with and
Mm-hmm.
how they wish to be communicated with.
Yes.
So depending on what your small business is all about, whether it's a service or a product, you know, there's going to be different types of touch points involved in that personalized communication strategy.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes it's going to be by email, sometimes it's going to be by SMS text messaging, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's going to be how they interact with your app, right? Depending on what you're providing to that client. But
Right.
understanding how frequently they want to be communicated with. I have a client that wants to touch base once a year when they're up for renewal, and they really don't care if I reach out at any other point in time with them or not, you
As
know?
long as things are going
So
well, right?
right, right. So then your strategy for personalized communication is going to vary. You can't just lump everybody into the same type of sequence or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that that's really important. When you're selling a product, I found it interesting when I learned that personalized product recommendations account for 30%
Wow.
of all e-commerce.
Mm-hmm.
So once you get them as a customer, if you're providing a product, they do want to hear from you. They want
Yeah.
to hear like how those pair of earrings match that necklace that you bought 2 months ago, or
Mm-hmm.
how this fragrance is very, very close in terms of same kind of profile fragrance as the last one that I purchased, but just
Mm-hmm.
enough of a nuance that it might be something that I'd want to wear for the evening instead of all day or something.
Right.
So that kind of
Mm-hmm.
personalized product recommendations are something that's actually growing more and
Yeah.
more.
For sure. And I do more B2B, but I certainly know what I like when it as a consumer when it comes to that. And you're absolutely right. I like to see the recommendations based on my history of what I've, purchased or done previously. Absolutely. So,
Yeah. And then it also take it beyond what you're providing
mhm.
to add value to that client. So if I am um, selling a particular coaching service to a business that's um, a woman-owned business, and I find out that there is a conference coming up for women in business,
Mm-hmm.
I want to
Mm-hmm.
be able to share that content to that audience as well, and kind of, dissect who within my audience would be a good fit for receiving that kind of information, just
Right,
to let
right.
them know that I am thinking of them in other ways beyond
Mm-hmm.
just every touch point being a sale or an upsell kind of
Right.
opportunity.
And
But I
that makes
really,
me think some of the sales tips, the sales techniques are also good for retention because that's often a sales thing, which is you see something you share because you want to stay top of mind. Same thing, it
right,
sounds like.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So that, I think what it boils down to is the right message at the right time using the
Mm-hmm.
right channel. So
Yep.
whether it's a text message versus an email versus a social post or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Nice. I can do some of those. I can do that. I can implement some of that in my own day to day. So.
So I mean that's really what I was thinking, and um it might even go a little bit further, I think, with like birthday offers.
Mm-hmm.
I just started getting big on that,
Mm-hmm.
taking advantage of all those free things or reduced price things for my
Right.
birthday. I've
Right.
never done that really in the past. So I think that
Uh-huh.
that's another thing that I kind of jotted down that can be a personalized communication piece of
Mm-hmm.
it.
It's a good
And
point.
then invite only offers.
Oh, I love that stuff.
So if you're like a spa or something like that, you make
Mm-hmm.
it seem like it's an exclusive offer for just, a small group of people,
Mm-hmm.
and send it out, as a way to get people to come in for maybe to hear somebody in health and wellness speak,
Yeah.
or something along those lines. So it's connected to your brand, but it's
Mm-hmm.
just not necessarily about your services.
Yep. No, that's a good one. I love stuff like that. If it's VIP or exclusive or whatever it is.
Well, we all want
um,
to feel important, right?
yep. I
Yeah,
love that stuff. So
yeah.
absolutely.
And you can also base it on community, because I think a lot of brands these days want to let their clients know how they give back to their community.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So, that's another way of kind of personalizing the messaging and kind of tying it back in, is to say, well, join us for, Habitat for Humanity, you
Right.
know,
Right.
grab your hammer and come join us on this date or
Mm-hmm.
whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And really get them involved and see your brand in action for something like that.
Good. I like it. Nice.
So what do
So
you have for tip number 2?
So for tip number two, I was thinking about, like the rewards and recognition, like the programs, like reward programs or incentive programs. And I've seen a lot of it with software, like subscription based software, where it's month to month you pay, but they start to put in, and I've heard the term gamification, which is you get little badges of usage, or you get little tokens that you can maybe redeem for other things. One of
Yeah.
my note taking software for my Zoom calls does that, and every time you finish or you share a link, you get token points that I think you can redeem at some point for probably swag, like a mug or a shirt or something like that. So it's really
Yeah,
smart
that's
because month to month, people expect like a lot of subscription stuff to be simple month to month fees. When they stop using it, they're done. But that does start to build loyalty with me especially. So, but generally looking at, okay, how can you, it's along the lines of sort of the incentives, the rewards, the acknowledgement that you mentioned. But this is sort of like, once you're subscribing or once you're in the system, how can you sort of, you like, what do you want? Like, you want to get them to refer, you want to get them to go up to the next level. There's all these
Yeah.
goals that you might consider. So, rewards would encourage like repeat purchases. If they chose something specific over another thing, all those things are good with the, specifically the loyalty programs. And so, what you see is you start to see this sense of community. Like, I've seen it in obviously some software programs. We've seen it with cars. Like, I remember Subaru was like such a big deal for a while. And there's, the Saturn car. Remember there was the Saturn groups of people. Like, so
Yeah.
there, it's funny when you can, like, I actually have a Subaru, so I see some of their stuff. It's very earthy and camping and dog friendly and all this stuff. So, those type of things can really create a sense of community. And that's when
Yeah.
you have the swag, you have the gear, you have accessories for your car, but then you start to dabble in somebody wearing something of yours with your logo, and how can, some of it's for sale, some of it you might want to include. So I don't know,
Yeah.
these loyalty programs, just like everything that we've talked about, is figure out what your goal is. Is it to increase the length of time as a customer? Is it to get additional customers? Is it to get them to get up to the next level? And those may all be your goals, but you kind of need to
Yeah.
prioritize because you might have very different plans based on what
Absolutely.
your goal is. So,
Yeah.
if it's, I want this person to be a lifetime customer, like that's a great goal. Then you think of all the building blocks to actually get that to it, and the components of it. So, the community, how do you connect them to your brand, like exclusive offers like you talked about, like, the things that they can get first, or the things
Yeah.
that they can maybe share because
Yeah.
they're a member, they can share to somebody else who also gets that. So looking at, those offers, and how do you make that part of the in crowd, as they mentioned. So and then
Yeah.
the the communication channels too, I like, because you talked about how you could communicate, and I think that, like, if you're in a platform using it, you think about, how can I share? I don't know if you've ever heard of Sticker Mule. They have a lot of offers for stickers and buttons and magnets. I love them, but every week they have a new offer of something that they're doing, like stickers for this price, and it's always like a great deal. Like, I order from them all the time. But how you share that information, like quick social shares, hey, I just purchased this, I just ordered this, I love this. Like, people don't set that stuff up sometimes, because I mean, it's just a little bit of work, but sharing a social post that said, I'm so happy with what I just purchased, and it's quick and it's
Yeah.
easy and set up, that
Yeah.
makes a big difference. And that's going to help, and maybe you can earn commission on things. I've seen that with like the old GoDaddy models, like for somebody to something and you get a tiny commission. So anyway, so all of that to say, the program itself, what is your goal? And then what are the different pieces of it? So if it's lifelong customer, if it's to spend more money, more profit per person, whatever it
Mhm.
is, try to set that up.
Mhm.
And then as you look at that, when you're trying to figure out the program as a whole, always budget and resources, right? So who's managing
Yeah.
it? Who's paying attention to it? Do you have budget to kick it off for design or promotion or whatever else? Influencers, you can there's opportunities to court them, like a PR approach, and send them kits and try to get them to talk about your product. You can also pay certain ones. So what is the budget? What are your resources? And then back to the personas you mentioned, target audience and preferences, and then just keep it
Yeah.
simple, right? You have to, how do I participate? The more complicated you get, you're just going to lose people. And then how are you going to track it, right? How do you
Mhm.
track whatever the goal is? If it's people increasing to the next level, well, make sure you're setting the metrics so that you can prove to your boss that it's worth it and get
Yeah.
more money next time so you can make it even cooler. So,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
So,
And I think there's that fear with when you're in small business that, oh my gosh, spending $500 is a lot of money. I don't know if it's going to work or not, but
mhm,
it's an investment Yes, with no guarantee of what the results are going to
Mm-hmm.
be. But
Mm-hmm.
if you don't try it, then you're almost guaranteed that you're not going to be making money.
Right. Right. You're
you know?
stagnant. You didn't learn anything. Like, yeah,
Yes.
that's the
Yeah.
worst. So,
Yeah. So it kind
absolutely.
of that almost goes into tip three, but I don't know if you have anything else for tip two.
No, I think that's good. That to me, tip two is just about look at the program as a whole. If I had to summarize it, so yeah, I would love
Yeah.
to hear tip number three. What do you got for us
Well, I'm going to
today?
back up for just a second. I think
Okay.
for tip two, I kind of wanted to also bring about the acknowledgement of how long they have been a client or a customer of yours.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
Try to record somehow along the way, especially if you're doing more in the excuse me, the service business where it's more about coaching or, you
Interesting. Yeah.
know,
Mm-hmm.
delivering a service rather than a product. Make a
Right.
note of when they started with you and
Yeah.
then recognize that on the annual dates that they've
Mm-hmm.
been working with you, especially if they keep either using your service or
Yep.
they're also maybe referring others if they no longer need what's in your scope. And I think that that really endears them to
Mm-hmm.
your brand and it gets them to continue to either feel like, yeah, there's a bond here and I want to continue to use D
Mm-hmm.
or I want to continue to
Yep.
refer. And so I think that that's so important. That relationship should be lifelong, if
No,
you're
you're
doing
right. Yep.
things the right
Mm-hmm.
way, right? So
Yeah.
really kind of start to think and gear towards that.
Yeah. No,
So,
I'm glad you paused and rewound that because I could do better with that. I have some long term clients, and now that it's like celebrating these milestones, like a
yeah,
way to celebrate it, and then also think about, no, I mean, I I mental note taken because I'm gonna go back and look because now I have. I mean, with HubSpot, which I always talk about, but I easily have my contact records. I can put their start date. I can get alerts for their milestones of their anniversaries and get something happening. I just need to set it up and then it'll be good. So yeah, thank you.
exactly. Yeah. And if you're using that automated process, then
Hmm.
it does become so much
Yeah.
easier to have those touch points with them.
Hmm.
Just, hey, thinking of you today.
Yeah.
Do you remember that this is when we
Hmm.
started,
Yeah. I
working
can send
together?
flowers. I can do something fun. Tips treats here. I don't know if you have it everywhere or there, but the warm cookies they'll send. So yeah,
Yes.
I think I'll do something like that. So
Yeah, that would be great. Oh, now my tummy's growling for
I
some
know.
more cookies.
All right. So tip three,
Uh,
let's hear it.
so I think, getting continuous feedback from your
Hmm.
customer is so important. And it's something that we can kind of put to the side
Hmm.
because we're, conditioned to say, well, um, no news is good news. If they weren't happy, they'd be complaining,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
Um, and that is true. You are usually the first to know, or maybe
Hmm.
not. Maybe they just go out and find somebody else and then tell you that you're fired, you
Yeah.
know,
Or
without
something
giving
has
you
come in front of
communication.
them that they suddenly realize that there's more that they need and they didn't realize it. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, and I think
Hmm.
sometimes too, in my past life in the sales career is that we kind of assume that the client knows everything that we can offer. And
Hmm.
that's not always true. So, to your point, somebody comes along and says, well, hey, you need this, and I can do that. And
Hmm.
they don't stop to think, oh, well, I should call Dee first and check to see if she can do this
Yeah.
before I would give this contract to this other person. They just
Yeah.
naturally go down that path with that other person. And then you find out after the fact and you say, oh, I could have done that for
Yeah.
you. And they're like, oh, I didn't realize.
Yeah. Where you have a specific service for someone and they're happy with that. You failed to inform them or share with
Yeah.
them the new things that you're doing. and therefore you lose them because they just weren't aware that the other thing is, which is completely your fault, like for not keeping that client up to loop, or at least understanding how they've evolved, that they might need something. So that's a big one.
Yeah.
Not
And so I
don't feel
think
like
just,
you're annoying them, but you do have to tell them what you're doing for other people, what you've done, what you see working, that kind of stuff. Yep, makes
yeah,
sense.
yeah.
Yeah.
And use it as look at it as more of an educational
Mm-hmm.
type of email, right?
Right.
Or have it in a newsletter or something so
Mm-hmm.
that you're constantly informing them of what's going on.
Absolutely.
Um, and, then when you have, schedule those review calls or whatever, and make
Mm-hmm.
sure there again that you're getting a pulse on what's changing in their world,
Right.
what's new, or there might be new leadership that's come into their organization that puts them on
Mm-hmm.
an entirely different path
Yep.
than where they were when they started with you. So understanding all of this,
Yep.
um, putting out those surveys or questionnaires,
Mm-hmm.
or I like, sometimes it's more fun to create like a sweepstakes or a giveaway, but try to incorporate getting them to answer a couple of questions that are
Mm-hmm.
relevant to them, that can also help you get up to date on what's happening
For
without
sure.
actually
Yeah.
having to have that phone call or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
to find out, and then incorporate that into something fun like a sweepstakes or a giveaway, so
Mm-hmm.
that you maintain that information about what's happening with the client overall, not
Yep.
just the individual client, but overall within the industry that you're
Right.
serving. So I
Yeah,
think
you've got the
that's very
business, you've got
important.
the person you're dealing with, any other
Yeah,
people within the company that you might need to understand. And
yeah,
Google, I do Google alerts sometimes, and I need to be more consistent, but you can have Google alerts set for a person's name, a company name, and I mean, that's a nice way to know what if someone spoke at something at a conference or something. Like, you're not going to know, they're not going to tell you all these little things, but you can set up some, automations and technologies to give you that, insight, because they would love to know that, oh, I hear, I heard you spoke here. They'd be like, oh, thank you,
yes,
kind of thing.
yes.
So,
That is so
absolutely.
true, and I'm not as good at that as I should be, so
Mm-hmm.
that's my takeaway for
Yeah.
today, is do more with the Google alerts. I really do
Yeah.
think that, when people do take their time to go and speak at a conference or
Mm-hmm.
whatever, not only are they're sharing their knowledge, but it is a great opportunity for them to just, you know, be regarded as an
Mm-hmm.
expert in whatever
Right.
it is they're talking about. So
Right.
having somebody say to them, "Oh, I noticed you did this," or
Mm-hmm.
maybe you were able to catch a link to it and
Mm-hmm.
actually, listen to it,
Yep.
and be able to share a couple of tidbits about that
Mm-hmm.
when
Yep.
you talk with them or in an email or whatever, I think
Mm-hmm.
is really going to go a long way in developing that relationship. And I think not only always asking about the positive side, but also really, really asking about the negative.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
if somebody says, "I'm really happy with your service," say, "Thank you. What could I do to improve it?"
Mm-hmm.
And then listen to that feedback. So you're constantly, you're out there and you're acknowledging that you're doing good, but you're also acknowledging that you can also get better and you
Sure.
want to get better,
Yeah.
and open up that dialogue, because I really think that that is going to help you, um, to grow and to
Yep.
be able to better service the client and the customer in the long run.
Yeah.
And
And
for
I
those,
try to do that too. With, I'm sorry, like
no, go ahead.
the idea that you might, fail or something doesn't reach its goals, like that has to be a really open conversation, because, you're not, you don't see the future, right? But you're constantly learning and improving and honing. So I do think that's really important to have that
Yeah.
conversation.
And if you're creating a product and you hear, well, this is a feature that I really need,
Mm-hmm.
you're only going to know where you're missing the mark if you
Right.
ask, because
Mm-hmm.
otherwise they're just going to say, yeah, everything's going along fine, and in the back of their mind going, I only wish I could do this.
Yep.
And
Mm-hmm.
they may not feel comfortable in even broaching that subject with you.
For
So
sure.
once they know that you're open to that feedback, that you're
Mm-hmm.
open to that dialogue, it creates a whole different opportunity for
Right.
you.
Yep.
Yeah.
Good.
So let's see. I think that was, um, you know, understanding, yeah, the how to embrace that negative feedback.
Mm-hmm.
Now, nobody wants to hear it, but I
Right.
do think it's important that you just acknowledge it. You don't really have to start giving them excuses if you
No.
haven't met all of the check boxes,
Right. Right.
but
Mm-hmm.
really validate that they have um, very good feedback that they're sharing with you, and
Yes.
that you will take it to heart and you'll come
Mm-hmm.
back to them and let them know whether or not you can accommodate what
Right.
it is that they're needing. And maybe you
Mm-hmm.
can't, and that's okay. Don't go out and kill yourself to try to react to all
Yeah.
of the various feedbacks and pull yourself in a million different
Yeah.
directions, but really kind of take it all in and figure out what fits in your business model,
Mm-hmm.
what is doable that you can do to evolve the product or service.
Right.
And if you can't, then, you're not going to be able to meet everybody's
Mm-hmm.
expectations. So,
Yep. Just
don't take it too personally.
get back to where's the goals and where are you headed. So 100%. I had one
Yeah.
other thought come up as you were talking about some of this too, is that, it's really easy now to follow your client on LinkedIn, like the
Hmm.
company and the person. So you can connect or you can follow. So, and if you have a team working with different people, you can tell them that's part of the role for the people that they work with. But because if you follow someone on LinkedIn, you might see a work anniversary for them. You might see other milestones. You might see like the speaking thing. So that's another one too. I'll say is just, especially for B2B stuff, like
Yeah.
follow these people and support them in their own professional growth and stuff like
Yeah. And sometimes it's easier just to follow them,
that. Mm-hmm.
um,
Yeah.
than it is to try to connect with everybody,
Yeah.
because there's so many connection requests that come across
Mm-hmm.
LinkedIn
Yeah.
that
It's a little much
I don't
now.
know that everybody actually looks at all of them,
Yeah.
but if you
Right.
follow, then at least you're in the know for the time
Yeah.
being, and
Yeah. Yeah.
so
And
that's
the numbers are so crazy. It's hard to imagine like whittling that down to quality connections versus whatever. But I do like the follow option, so it's nice.
yeah.
Well, good.
Oh my
Well,
goodness.
this has been helpful. I have at least two things I'm gonna write down to address. So,
I
um,
do as well. So if nobody else got anything out
yeah,
of it, we did, but hopefully we will have gotten your wheels turning
yeah,
too, and that you're thinking, as our audience, of things that you can incorporate that will help you to retain those clients. And we would
awesome.
love to hear after this if you want to post any of those things on LinkedIn once Christina gives us the overview of the
Hmm.
end of the session. We would love to hear from the audience as well.
Yeah,
Always.
that would be great. So we're gonna close out here. And until next time, I'll pop up the closing screen. And then people can have our contact information. And until next week, take care,
Yep.
Dee.
Ready, set, action, people.